disconcerting it is to drive up to the church and see your name on the sign. I wonder how many people are driving right on by. But I thank you for welcoming me this morning, and this isn't my first time at St. Francis, and I have had a connection with St. Francis in several ways for many years, through the Walk to Emmaus and other ways. Jim is serving as a pastor on the Walk this weekend, and you can imagine it's probably chaotic. Well, some of you got it. Okay. Some of us will be okay, John. But Jim gave me a kind of a theme or a list of themes that you're looking at during Lent, and today was his question was, how do you thirst? And I had a hard time getting my mind around how we thirst, and so we're going to talk about some other things about thirst. And it's really more about today is about thirst than it is about the water that resolves the thirst, although that is what is surrounding everything. The water, that which we move in. Thirst really is, when we consider thirst, we can see that the scriptures were formed in the desert, a desert that is similar to ours, but different, significantly different. There's wilderness parts of the desert in the Holy Land that are strictly barren. I look at those pictures on the internet or wherever, and I get thirsty just looking at the pictures. So those thirst was a key element for the people. As a matter of fact, about 300 times the word Negev is listed in the scriptures. That's the Negev was their name for the desert. So thirst was an element of their life. In reality, it's an element of our life as well. Thirst is part of who we are in being human. But today I want to kind of expand that idea of thirst. I think learning to thirst, or accepting the fact that we do thirst, is key to us reaching out. And I'll tell a little story to start. Maybe I should close with this, but I'm going to open with it because I think it kind of sets the tone for what thirsting is all about. And it's a story of a young man who comes to a sage asking what he can do to find God. How do I find God? And so the sage takes the young man by the hand and leads him down to the river. And they wade out into the river until it's deep enough for the young man to submerge himself, and the sage says, go ahead, put your head under. And he does. And then the sage promptly puts his hand on his head and holds him under. And continues to hold him under. And quite a time passes as the young man is thrashing around trying to push his hand off and get up to get some air, and he's struggling, and finally the sage lets him up, and of course he erupts out of the water with a deep gasp to get air. And looks the sage in the face and says, why did you do that? And the sage calmly responds, what was it that you desired the most while I was holding you under? And of course, what do you think he said? Air. Air. I wanted air. And the sage says, when you desire God as much as you desired air, you will find God. Thirst is something that drives us. On a basic level, drives us to seek God. Drives us to seek water. Now, I want to point out that thirst can drive us in the wrong direction as well. We can thirst for power, the thirst for wealth, the thirst for fame, thirst for alcohol, sugar. The refrigerator has a lot of things that we thirst for. I think thirst is stronger than hunger. It's even stronger than yearning. Thirst goes right to the heart of who we are. Thirst actually comes within our body as a chemical, some chemical changes take place. It goes down to the cellular level. If the salt builds up, or the salt level in our fluids are not balanced, then cells don't get nutrients, they don't get fluid. The fluid level is too low. It's a basic part of our makeup. So thirst is, when you think of thirst, it is a critical term. It is almost akin to dying. Of course, one of the familiar phrases that we hear from thirst is dying of thirst. I'm dying of thirst. I would die for a drink of water. Thirst is each basic need. But so is our spirit in need of that thirst. Our spirit needs that thirst for God, for the other, for the holy, for the one who nurtures us. We sang that prayer, just in the Creator. The one who created us, who put us all together. I would submit that we're kind of like fish swimming in the ocean, surrounded by that which can nurture our thirst. We are just in this ocean of grace that God has poured out to us. As I was thinking about thirst, I came across a video clip. Some of you may know Renee Brown, who is a psychologist, a research psychologist actually, sociologist, in terms that she's not theoretical. She goes to the people and interviews and pulls out of them the information and where they're at. And her fame came through an understanding of shame and vulnerability, and most recently she has tackled forgiveness. And she understands forgiveness, I think, as being something that is tied directly to death and to grief. As a matter of fact, she says, everything works on rebirth. But for rebirth to occur, there has to be death. And so when we thirst, that opens the door for us then to get life. When we thirst, it opens the door for us to get life. She even says that forgiveness is the ultimate act of love. Forgiveness is the ultimate act of love because it is so tightly tied to death and to grief. When we are grieving, we are thirsty for something. What are we thirsty for? We're thirsty for the past. We're thirsty for the one we've lost or that which we've lost. We thirst for peace. We thirst for things to be the way they were, but you see, change cannot take place without us moving into that thirst or that death that allows us to accept that which is new, to be open, to open the door. One of the members of the 745 service mentioned it's like the rending of a piece of cloth. When we tear that piece of cloth, it creates an opening. Creates an opening for something new. So I guess as we think about thirst, let's not be too quick to move away from that thirst to the satiation of that through an easy, quote unquote, drink water or whatever. Because it's in that thirsting, in that seeking, in that openness that we can truly be available to the grace of God. If we're going to think about thirst, we also might want to think about Jesus as being the living water. Or having that living water available to us. But as I think about this, it also leads me to believe that we too are water bearers. That we bear that living water to others in our daily living. So in that thirst, it allows us the capability to be bearers of that grace, that living water for others. When you think about that, how many people did Jesus wrestle to the ground, pry open their mouth, and pour that living water into? To the woman at the well. He drew the water. He invited her to draw the water. He invited her to drink. But he didn't pour it down her throat. It's important for us to thirst. It's important for us to be thirsty. But to be thirsty for that God who nurtures us as living water in peace, in love, in grace. We live in a desert. I think one of the beautiful things about the desert is you have to work to see the beauty sometimes. When I came from a greener climate, actually I came to Arizona from England. You don't think that's a culture shock. But in the desert, you have to learn to look for the beauty. And the beauty is not in huge flowers. The beauty is in little bitty flowers. The beauty is in that little stream or trickle of water in the midst of dryness. The beauty is even in the sunsets or the sunrises of the morning, looking at those multicolored rocks. I look here, and somebody's been to the gym show, obviously. But the beauty of the things that can be dug out of the ground. I look at some of those huge geodes at the gym show this year, and wow, I fell backwards. Wow, it was just amazing. Amazing what God has put together. Few little drops of water. Little drops of water. Let's be thirsty. Let's be vessels. Carry God's living water into the world. To share God's grace in each place. And thus, draw closer to God and to one another. May you have a thirsty land.
Yeah.